Welcome to another episode of Distory. My name is Kirk from AugersCarp.com, and with me, as always, is the magnificent, the stunning, the brilliant, slow burn of an author, Kate the Disney Cicerone. Kate, how we doing this evening?
I am doing good. Thanks for referring to that inside joke to our intro. No, I'm really good. I'm happy to be diving back into Disneyland Paris. I feel like we had to step away for a little while just because of life, family, vacations, those kinds of things. So it's really nice to be able to kind of wrap up this series. Not in this episode, but at least in this, the last.
I mean, not tonight. You know,
not tonight.
Like we wouldn't do it tonight.
People get too excited.
No, well, that was the joke before we started recording. We were talking about how this podcast is a slow burn, and I didn't realize it was a type of novel. But long story short, we teach you a lot, but we do it slowly.
It's true. We creep through the rides. Very snail pace.
Right. If you guys hate standby lines, you'll hate this podcast. Actually, you know what? It'd be really good if you were like stuck in a long queue, to pop on one of these episodes and like listen to the queue episode before, or like, you know, an episode right before the stretching room. You listen to the stretching room stuff for like, you know, well, you wouldn't even have enough time unless it was like a 90-minute.
Yeah, it's true.
It's
true. But no, it's true. You could do it with the queue ones. Would be really interesting because it kind of helps align where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's dive in here. We last time, to recap, we talked about Frontierland, the history of Thunder Mesa, specifically in Disneyland Paris. So that's their Frontierland. And we went over some of the concepts of it and where it came from. But tonight we're going to talk specifically about Big Thunder Mountain itself. Start off with some concepts, a little bit of construction, and then dive into the queue, which has a ton of really cool stories. So that's where we're headed this evening. We're not going to get beyond the queue. I already know that. Maybe not the whole queue even. So we'll see.
Buckle up, kids. You're going to learn about a line for a long time.
Get ready to stand in line. And learn.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thanks, Mom.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the concept of this Big Thunder Mountain, which we've already talked about is the most beautiful version of Big Thunder, right? That's how Tony Baxter referred to it. It really is the best version of Big Thunder that exists in any Disney park. The Imagineering team that worked on this, of course, Tony Baxter was the lead of Disneyland Paris as a whole, so he was overseeing everything. Jeff Burke was the lead designer of the Frontierland Thunder Mesa area, and then Pat Burke did the set design. So those are some of our key players in design here. Of course, there's a whole mess of other Imagineers that worked on this project as well. I do have some artwork from Frank Armitage from 1989, which is a concept art of Thunder Mesa during the Gold Rush, which is the same perspective as Main Street USA, with Big Thunder Mountain as the weenie or focal point instead of Sleeping Beauty Castle.
There goes that slow burn again.
I'm not going over it again. They can listen to the last episode about it if they need to know what that means. But so with Tony Baxter talking about this, he said, we talked a little bit about this being the centerpiece, meaning Big Thunder. And what we really wanted to do is something that Walt Disney had taught us all, that he wanted all the lands to be alive with lots of movement going on. So by putting the most kinetic piece in the center, no matter where you go, except when it's not running, you have all this activity and excitement. And so if we start over here with Molly Brown is coming in and the Haunted Mansion, which is Phantom Manor there, they see the splashdown effect, and we have over there on Big Thunder coming through the middle here all the way over the load area, totally captivating. So it's basically saying like everything in this land is moving at any given time. And so it's all very like feast for the eyes because of its kinetic movement.
Yeah, I mean, visually, that whole entire area is absolutely gorgeous.
I mean, I stood for a long time just watching the splashdown. You can kind of see it from the side, just standing and looking over Big Thunder. You can watch the splashdown happen, and it's actually really fun to watch all the people kind of get splashed. And so, so we've also showed this one before. This one is Tom Gillian from 1987.
That's my favorite one of all of the artwork, because we mentioned this when we were talking about our Phantom Manor series. And yeah, I love the color. The color is, I'll let you talk. I'll stop talking.
Well, yeah, no, that's the use of light and color differentiate between the living part of the town, which is warm and bright colors, and the haunted part of the town with Phantom Manor, which is cool and dark colors. So very distinct areas of the living and the not so much living areas.
That's me. I'm the cool, dark, not living host.
I'm the living one? Interesting.
Yeah. Hang on, let me reenact that. I'm the living one?
I wouldn't have guessed that, but that's fair.
Okay.
So anyway, just a couple of concepts to the basic thing to pull away from this is that Big Thunder Mountain is like the equivalent of the castle of Thunder Mesa. It is the focal point. It's the thing in the middle of the island. It's an amazing piece.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you go through the fort, it's framed. It's literally framed with an arch that you go underneath.
Yeah. So let's talk just a little bit about construction. It's interesting because all the stats I have for construction are all kind of in metric because it's
let me get out my conversion calculator.
I did convert them. So there's 23,000 liters of paint, which is 6,076 gallons. It's 33 meters high, which is 108 feet. So this is interesting because if you remember in Disneyland, they had to sink down Big Thunder about 20 feet to make sure it wasn't taller than the Matterhorn. Obviously, in Walt Disney World and Tokyo and here, they don't have that same thing because they don't have the Matterhorn. They're not trying to honor Walt Disney that way. So it's a little bit taller than the other ones. Duration of the ride is 3 minutes and 15 seconds. The maximum speed is 67 kilometers per hour, which I didn't convert. So if you're Canadian, you know what that is. Or you're from Europe. And the biggest ascent is 12 meters as well. I have no concept of that as an American, so good luck.
That's like, I don't know, that's like 36 feet-ish, right? Something like that. It's like roughly 3 feet per meter.
The number of trains is pretty similar to the ones we've seen before. There's 6 trains, of which 5 can be used at the same time, so that's pretty standard for most Big Thunders. The train names seem to be identical to the ones that are in America. You be bold, you are daring, you are courageous, I am brave, I be hardy, I am fearless. The trains at the Paris version are painted, however, to look like they are weathered, which we've mentioned in a previous episode. So that is a differentiation from the other versions of it because of the backstory.
Yeah, remember, we have a cursed phantom mine train that's running on its own, and that's why nobody wants to go near it.
Right. And I also have just a little quick note about the landscaping. This is from Tony Baxter. So this is a little bit more, not just the ride, but the whole area. He said, "Now, our other Frontierlands really show a panorama of very different parts of the American West, but a lot of our West looks a lot like Europe. As we thought, let's not do all these parts and just reflect beautiful green forests and whatnot. Let's try to keep an entire Frontierland dry. Now, that may sound easy, but where it rains every day, the ground wants to be green and swans want to swim in this water and everything. And so trying to keep it to look like an authentic American Western desert is very, very difficult. So for our cactus and succulent plants that come out just about now, maybe in another month, they have to be kept in a greenhouse all winter long to keep them from being frostbitten by the cold in the winter. And they bring those out and it adds the atmosphere of the place. So they actually tuck in their succulents and their cacti in the wintertime. They put in the bed and they hibernate and then they come back out when it's warm again." What?
I'm going to get you a t-shirt that says, "Don't forget to tuck in your succulents."
I would wear that.
Just like little tiny potted plants everywhere.
And our friend Rhonda says it's 42 miles per hour. Thank you.
It's not. It's not real math. Whatever that is. I don't know. I remember when I went to Montreal, as soon as you pass over, everything is in kilometers, right? Kilometres. And I'm like, how fast are we going? And it's like 120 kilometres. We're flying. And everything was the Rue de la Croix.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's rues everywhere, dude.
Yeah. All right. So that's the main notes I have. I have a couple of pictures of construction and stuff, but I don't really have anything else.
Let's look at them.
Okay. It's definitely the same process I think they used for the other Big Thunders.
You can see all the steel lathing and meshwork that they put the cement on. It's, you know what's funny, right? Like, because we talked about how you utilize one concept and you're like, oh, that's how you do it. You know, like, oh, use a grease gun and that's how you make stalactites.
I don't think I have a ton more. I have one. We'll get to this eventually, but I do have one I'm lifting in the tractor.
Whoa.
Traction.
Whoa. It's a big deal. By the way, kids, if you don't know, Kate and I text each other either pictures of lanterns, stoves, crates, donkey engines. That's our normal, or cranes.
That's like, what we do. That's our language.
It's not normal things like, oh, take a look at this lounge fly that came out. It'd be like, wait, what's on that above the shelf? Is that a can of baked beans? Well, historically, they didn't actually put beans in cans until 1827 because of leaching issues.
Painfully accurate.
So much, dude. So much stuff. I think that this stuff is so underappreciated and becomes wallpaper to most people, and it just looks pretty or looks aesthetically to the theme. I guess the thing that I'm most proud of when we do this show is that we bring to light things that normally would seem innocuous to most people or most guests, and then you can actually realize that some of these are legit period pieces. Unless it's a wood burning stove, then Kate she'll lose her mind over it.
Yeah. Well, some of them, they're not the right period, or they're like aged to look like the right period, and like stoves.
Well, for the most part,
stoves were a thing. Stoves were not a thing for me before this series, so this is a new development. Crate's
I didn't get into lanterns until now. I'm lantern crazy. It's a little bad.
And sticking Tommies. I feel like the sticking Tommies have been really fun in this series to discover them like other places.
Yeah, they've shown up at a lot of locations, surprisingly as well. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was going to make a note about opening day, but opening day is not the same as all the other ones. You know, when we had opening day for every other version of Big Thunder, it was added after the park was added. But this one was actually part of the park. It was designed from the very beginning before this park opened. So it opened with Disneyland Paris April 12th, 1992. So there wasn't a specific opening for Big Thunder itself. So, all right. Are we ready for the queue?
I'm all queued up.
The slow burn that is.
Oh, yo. The slow burn. All right, I got my cue video. I'm ready.
Ooh,
I got my cue video queued up.
I'm so excited. We've talked already many, many times about Pat Burke, who was the Imagineer who did the props for all these Big Thunder Mountain versions.
Yeah, we all gave him props, you know, because he's so good.
He got them from 16 different states, though, for this version. And I actually found a really cool note about Tony Baxter talking about Pat Burke and how he got these props. So this is a little bit long, so bear with me, but I think it's worth it. It's worth the journey. So buckle up. Here we go. So he said Pat would have done this researching mine equipment on his own. He didn't have the money to do it, so he would just go and photograph and bring back pictures. And we said, Pat, how would you like to actually go out there and find all these things, and then you could buy them? You know, and so he was a very, very humble and quiet person, very, very nice. And he would look at something and say, that's a beautiful stamp mill. That's a stamp mill down there. And he would crush the rock that would be mined. And once it was crushed, it would separate the gold out of it. That's a real piece. That's a real steam engine that was used to haul the ore out of the mines. So everything you're looking at was actually used 150 years ago for this equipment. And he said, but Pat would stand there and say, whoa, I really like that stamp mill. Is really nice. Boy, I would love to have that. And the person might say, I can see that you'd really care for this, and I'm getting older and I'm not going to be able to make sure it's well loved and everything, so I'll give it to you for a nice price. And he goes, okay. And then he'd go out, then get a check, and it would be Walt Disney Company, right? You know, and they were probably sitting there saying, wow, we could have gotten a lot more money, because they had no idea that he was from Walt Disney Company. He was just trying to find the pieces. So what was the result of that was Pat had a fixed budget, and we thought he'd only be able to get a few things for that amount of money. And everything you see here is due to Pat being able to expend that budget in the best way possible to create. He says, I think this is the best museum of Western artifacts anywhere in the world, but instead of them being in a room where a plaque describes what it was and how it was used, they're out here, and you're seeing them because Pat knew how they were used. He put all these scenes together so everything you see is exactly how the miners would have had it in operation when it was working. So they're not out of context in a box. They're actually here integrated with the attraction to continue the theme that this is a real chance to go on a wild mining ride through the West.
Wow. So basically, Pat Burke just bored everybody to death and was like, man, that really crushes rocks. I'd really like to crush those rocks with this.
I think he had
That would be
enthusiasm
great to
for
crush
it.
it.
I think he was like, that is a great stamp mill. Like, he probably gets as excited about stamp mills as we do, maybe more so.
Dude, you figure if you could show passion for stamp mills that clearly are not being utilized as new technology makes them more obsolete because there's more efficient ways to do things. Yeah, I think somebody would be excited if you showed 5% interest, but he probably showed like 110% interest.
Oh, he was like all about it because he grew up around all this equipment, remember? So I do have a note about the vignettes with Big Thunder Mountain in the distance. So there was a couple of ones that we saw that I have pictures of and stuff, but just the idea of everything as being kind of a vignette where you see this beautiful view of Big Thunder. This is my picture, by the way. It's not there. But
wow,
Pat,
dude, look at you, man.
I know. No,
would
Pat,
you color grade that thing? That's
no,
not what it looks.
It's not edited.
That's not what that looks like in real life, kid. She popped that saturation. I know. I know it when I see it.
Anyway, he said that what he did when he was making all these vignettes was he always considered the director Alfred Hitchcock, the ins and outs and keeping the butte in focus in the end. So everywhere that you see mining equipment that is in Thunder Mesa, you're seeing kind of a vignette where it's trying not to block Big Thunder behind it. So they're very much thought about the way that Alfred Hitchcock would do his films and create something similar, which I thought was really interesting.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. Okay.
I would have never made that connection with Hitchcock.
Yeah. It was an interesting quote. So sorry, I've been talking for a really long time, but I'm ready now to go to, I have the Huntington Mill up first. Do you have anything before that?
Huntington Mill. That's what I have too. So all I found was like signage and then the stamp mill itself. So on the left-hand side of this POV video, here's an actual zoomed in picture of the, we have the same picture. You get the Huntington Mill.
Here, I can do a different one. Here, I'll do the winter one. Here.
Okay. Here we go. The Huntington Mill, established 1872. Contact Mr. Jack O'Furdy's foreman in assay office before unloading wagon. So, and then what Kate is showing is the actual mill itself, where you can see the hopper on the top. So here's another picture as well. And then down below, you can see where the stamp, literally, it comes down and crushes all the larger pieces of rock and ore into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Yeah. So I have a couple of things from this. First, I have a quote from Pat Burke, and he said, Tony Baxter was worried that this smokestack would block the view of the butte and asked Skip to have me take it out of the scene, specifically for this mill. I told Skip not to worry about the smokestack could fold down as it did when it was traveling on the road. So I folded it down into its yoke, and it was all fine as shown in this photo documentation. So kind of like what we're seeing in these pictures. I also had to design the reentry building in the background so as not to block the view as well. It was a fun roofline to work with. There was only 3 of these mills ever produced, and I located 2 of them to salvage, 1 for Thunder Mesa. So pretty neat. There's only 3 that exist, and 1 of them is here in Disneyland Paris.
She's a real beaut, Clark.
I have a note about like how it works. It had a number of 15-foot rollers which circulated around a platform, crushing ore beneath them in a fine powder as it did so. And the powder could then be processed to extract the gold. So that is how that mill works.
If you don't enjoy all this information about stamp mills, you might find this a tad bit boring. I understand that.
So the sign out front, though, can we talk about Jack Fergus for a minute?
Sure.
Okay. So this one is a former Imagineer who worked in the model shop at WDI. I have a really wonderful picture of him when he was doing animation. So he worked at WDI around the time that Tony Baxter and several other members of the Disneyland Paris design team got started with the company. So he made models for, remember in our Haunted Mansion series, he made all those ones for the Museum of the Weird. He's the one that made the models for that, not the design, obviously. That was Rolly Crump, but he was the one that designed those. So I have a quote from Blaine Gibson about Jack Fergus. He says, he was my assistant for a while, a very amusing guy. He was 6'7" or 8", weighed 280 pounds. I don't know why that was relevant. At least was a former football player with a great sense of humor. Jack had an ability to make miniature models. Walt would come in and see these tiny little things he was able to make, little model sculptures or building sculptures or something else. Rolly Crump said to Walt, you know, he can't do that with his big hands. When you're gone, he has a little pair of hands that he gets out of the drawer, and he uses those to do his tiny work.
Do you ever see there's a TikTok person who like just has their hands in their shirt and they like have little tiny hands? That's all I'm picturing right now is that exact. So funny.
So he did have huge hands, but so you're gonna love this, Kirk. This is probably one of my favorite finds of this series. Okay, in Imagineering, there was a club called the Tip Top Club, and this was Disney artist Jack Fergus belonged to a club called the Tip Top Club, which was anyone over 6'6". He says, I can tell you a funny story about Jack because we were assistants together at the point of my career, and we were walking down the main hall in the animation building one day coming back from lunch. He had such an incredible arm span that he was dragging his fingertips on both sides of the wall as we came back in the building. Walt Disney had just gotten out of the elevator and was coming our way, and he looked and saw Jack and he said, Jesus Christ, Jack was a very, very big man.
Watch it, banana hands. It's like that exact scene with Tony Robbins in Shallow Hal.
But that, I think, is where the name Tip Top Club comes from. It was an inside joke at Imagineering.
Dude,
for anyone over 6'6".
You found a gem. I smell TikTok video. Probably already made it.
It was so hard because I sat on it all week because I was like, I can't make this before Distory. I have to wait. So
that's so good. I love that.
Yeah. So that is Jack Fergus. So that is who's on that sign. It's in honoring him, of course, because he passed away.
I sadly will never be able to join. I need another 4 inches. I'm going to start putting lifts in my shoes like Tom Cruise.
You could be like, put you on the rack, like stretch you out so you can be taller.
Now we're getting real slow burn here. They tightened it and he...
No. This is a family show, Kirk. Okay.
Anyway.
Let's talk about the entrance sign. There's something really interesting about the height requirement sign, if you have that. So Pat Burke said the idea was to have the gear that is kind of behind the height measurement sign. Says to have the gear be as tall as the smallest guest on the attraction. It had to be set several times in concrete as the operations decided the ultimate requirement for the finished pavement, which changed several times. So the height of the gear is supposed to be the same height as if your kids can go on it or not.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Can you pull that picture back up? I need to talk about this.
Okay.
Where did you find that picture?
This is a screen grab from the same video you have.
Okay. Because of like all times for me to pause it is at 24 seconds and you were probably at like 24 and a half seconds.
It's crazy, right?
Because I'm like, if this happened, that this dude stands in this same spot with the same getup, the same hair, we somehow have the same picture. But this is also weird.
It is weird that we both have the exact same.
Hang on.
Okay, we're good.
All right, I feel complete now.
Okay. Do you want to head on in? Do you have anything else from the outside there?
Couple tubular lanterns, and of course, Tony Baxter with BTM up at the top. Little Tony Baxter tribute on the logo, just like the other ones.
Right. The next thing I have is crates. I have a couple of crates.
Crate.
Crate expectations. So the crates, there's one that says shipped to Big Thunder Mining Company. And then it says Thunder Mesa Axes. And it says Randall Axe Manufacturing Co., Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville. Sorry, I gotta say that right. I did look up the Randall Axe Manufacturing Company and I didn't find one. I did find a Kelly Axe Manufacturing Company, which is a real company in Louisville, Kentucky. But I didn't see any Randall one. So I don't know if it's just like maybe a name of Imagineer or a family member or something that they stuck that instead of Kelly Axe, that could be. But that's all.
How far into the queue is it? Is it the ones that are like right to the right as soon as you walk through?
Yeah. So they also have Rusty Cutter Supplies, and it has numbers that didn't seem to mean anything to me. And I said old beach handle and strictly first class, but the number says 40138, and then number 7 hand panel something that I couldn't read. So
Is that a birdhouse at the top too?
Oh yeah, well we'll get there. That's later.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay.
So then I think the next thing I have is the steam powered cement mixer. So this one is pretty interesting. This was actually a really funny story. So this is by Pat Burke. He said, Executive VP Marty Sklar passed down a letter to me addressed to WDI from a museum in England that wished to purchase this steam-powered rarity for a special wing they had on steam power. I replied to them by phone that it was part of the show and could not be sold. They asked if I knew of another that might be for sale. I had to tell them no, I didn't. I did not have the heart to tell them that I made it up from parts. That it's not real. It's not a real steam. It didn't really exist. He just invented it. They wanted it for his museum. They thought it was real.
They're like, wow, that's a really great historical piece. He's like, you can't have it.
He like didn't tell. I'm like shocked that a museum was like didn't know their stuff enough to know that didn't exist.
Yeah.
Somebody wasn't doing their job that day.
Oh my gosh. It reminds me of the Franken cars. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we just passed the crates. They were on the right. Then, I mean, I couldn't tell what this thing was. Like this building.
I think that's just going back around into the queue.
Okay. This is where the cement mixer is, though.
Yes.
That's like another side of the cement mixer.
And then up ahead, you see that vertical shaft, that little building there. So that...
Yep. Yep, I see it.
So that building there, that structure is rumored as an air vent shaft to tie into the mercantile shaft. If you remember, we talked about that in the store that leads to Big Thunder Island. So it's
okay.
Like an access point, which I thought was really interesting. And it does have, I don't have a great picture of it, but I do. There has like a little door on it that has keys. You turn a wheel and it actually opens up the access to that structure.
There it is.
On what I say.
That's a great structure. I like how vertical it is.
Okay. Anyway, on the left-hand side there, you'll see a water hand pump on the left for a well. I don't really have anything else to say about that except, that's what it is. Unless you do.
It's got a name on it. It almost looks like it says something Sons, like P.O. Sons. I don't know if that's a company.
Yeah.
Or it's nothing.
Or it's nothing. Either or could be either thing. I know that there's also a wagon with barrels and crates that is on the other side. As you come around here, you can see that. But none of the crates seem to have anything on it that I could see. It's just more place setting, I think. And then on the left side, we'll see the Big Thunder Mining Company's signal light and steam whistle, which we did talk about in a previous episode, so we don't have to dwell on it.
This guy right here.
Too long. Yeah, that one. So that is something that Pat Burke said was the largest exterior made light in the park, used to warn riverboats of the approaching bend and rocky curve ahead, and as a signal to Big Thunder Mountain foreman Big Jack to clear the gin pole boom for loading and unloading at the ball mill dock.
Say that 12 times fast. Now, here's something I want to point out, because I just think this is such a cool, I know this isn't the greatest because you can't see everything, but there's that signal and light, then Thunder Mesa, then Phantom Manor. I just love the vista view of this specific thing because, again, this is the only Big Thunder Mountain that takes place on an island. So we literally have to go underwater to get to Big Thunder Mountain. And the foreboding manner and the fact that it is elevated and it's like overlooking and looming, it almost feels like even though Big Thunder is the butte and it's the larger structure, it's 110 kilometers. No, meters, sorry, not kilometers. It'd be like on the International Space Station. It still feels like the manor itself has a very ominous presence that's large and foreboding.
Yes,
which I think is really, really cool. Even though it's dwarfed in size, it doesn't feel like that in importance.
I mean, they're not kidding when they say this is the most beautiful version. It's just gorgeous. Every way, every place you go in Thunder Mesa is just a beautiful vista. But we're in the queue. So we just saw the signal light and steam whistle. And now we're going, we do see the water wheel will be coming up on the left-hand side at this point. So there is a water wheel on the left-hand side. Yeah.
Now, time out. There. That's not a mailbox. Or that is not whatchamacallit. That's not a birdhouse, is it?
Well, it's airmail for the carrier pigeons.
I love that.
Yeah. And there's actually some names on them. So the names are, it has cameras in it, actually. That's like what actually is in there. But the names are Fifi, which is the name of a tiki bird. Peggy, which I was like, maybe like Peggy Lee could be. Pablo, which is the name of a penguin who hated the cold from the 1945 film The Three Caballeros. And then Pollyanna, which was also a Disney movie from 1960. So I feel like they just pulled a whole bunch of like names of from Disney things and put them
It's
in
like
there.
the all the Donald Duck birthday celebration ducks. They just were like Alice in Wonderland duck. Why did you name it this way? I don't know. It's not selling as well as it should be.
Exactly. So there's the water wheel on the left. There's sluice boxes above them. And then above that is one of my absolute favorite things, which is a gigantic stamp mill, which is a beautiful one and looks like this. It has stars on it.
You and
She's
Berkey would be
gorgeous.
like best friends, dude.
I know. I'm sad he's gone.
Kate, did you see him break that rock? You'd be like, oh, I sure did, Pat. Could you imagine?
Great. It's so great, though. Oh, and there's also antlers on the roof. I don't know if
Now-
you noticed.
Time out here real quick. I know there's cameras in here. This
Yeah.
reminds me, because
That's
there's
the one that has the
multiple of
names
these,
on it.
right?
Yeah.
This reminds me so much of in Liberty Square in Walt Disney World. Not many people notice these, but there's several that are speaker boxes that have carrier pigeon like homes, and then there's the bigger ones which are cooler are on the tops of the buildings. So if you look at Columbia Harbor House in the attic area, there are holes for carrier pigeons to enter in through the attic, which I think is pretty neat. But these remind me of the ones that hide speakers in our Walt Disney World.
We also have them in Adventureland and Disneyland. If you remember, they're above the Jungle Cruise queue. So you can see there they have the Jungle Cruise airmail service is up there with Siobhan Murphy, Birdseed and whatnot. Anyway, so it is definitely a storytelling thing that they use often for place setting for that. So as we go around the bend here, there is a couple of crates and things that you go around and some gears. There's really not much there, but just some again, place setting.
I couldn't figure out what type of machining equipment that was.
No, I couldn't either. It looks like it's gears, but it looks like maybe for some sort of milling, if I had to guess. I do have this kind of expanded, something we see a lot more here than we do anywhere else is these antlers are everywhere. Do you see on the top of this structure? There's giant set of antlers.
You know what it is, honestly, for place setting wise, it makes you feel like this is in the wilderness more. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's trying to show that there's like a tamed chaos of the wilderness, but it's still dangerous.
Yeah.
That's what the display of horns is almost texturally feeling like, symbolically.
Like conquered something.
Right.
I do have a sign too that you might have missed that I think is really interesting as we go into this part of the queue. Well, do you want to talk about that first, what you see there?
Well, this says miners only, and it looks like it either could be a well, but more than likely it's probably a tool bucket or for moving ore, or.
It's a well.
It's an actual water well?
Yeah, you can see a bucket on there. So water is interesting because there's a lot of stories of water in this particular one. Because you remember we had the hand pump of water, and now we have a water well. And so water seems to be coming back. And there's a couple different buckets and things throughout here that aren't necessarily ore buckets. They seem to be more water-based. So I wonder if that's playing into the idea of we're going to go under the water,
Yeah, foreshadowing wise. What's interesting is like we do have water in like Walt Disney World's major thematic storyline is that the underwater geysers erupt and that's what collapses the mind. But yet you see the springs in the queue when you're elevated above the station, but you also have that water feature down below, which shows some like foreshadowing with the one dock that's kind of like half submerged with things askew on top of it. So I'm sure it's similar. I know everything has a reason. I know that's hard to think, but everything has a purpose and a place and a reason. And it's 9 times out of 10, it's actually story.
Yeah. Well, and water was also very significant to mining because they couldn't mine without water. You couldn't do gold mining without water. So it's interesting as we go through here to kind of like pay attention to all the things that we see that are related to water, because I think that there's some storytelling going on there. But there is a sign that's kind of near there before we get too far, Kirk. I want to pause because this one is an interesting one that I looked up that's called Garrett's Richer and Milder Snuff.
Tobacco?
Mm-hmm. Which is not something you see often in the parks these days. But of course this is France. So
yeah. Well, all right, ready? I'm going to bring in something that's Inglorious B, the Quentin Tarantino film. Brad Pitt's character used snuff a lot. Like you see him sniffing. It's like a sniffable tobacco that was very popular overseas and in places like France, all these places that, when they were fighting the Nazis. It was interesting because it wasn't big texturally in America as large as it was overseas. I think that's interesting.
Well, this one is from the Garrett Snuff Mill from Yorkland, Delaware, which is interesting. It's not even in the West. But I did a lot of research about this, and I'm just not going to go very deep into it because we could talk about this for a really long time. But it was owned by
snuff?
John. Yeah, well, in this particular instance of this Garrett Snuff Mill. So it was owned by John Garrett. When he passed it to his son, John Garrett II, and then they kind of just passed it through the family a lot, and then it became Garrett's Scotch Snuff, and then but they did have, this is something that's interesting though, is they had a devastating fire in 1877, and it says that this morning at 2:00, I have an actual article, a bright light was seen by a number of persons in the southwestern horizon, and it burned for 2 hours, and they basically lost $75,000 worth of product, which is in 1877, that's catastrophic, right? And so to me, I'm like, could this be related to the fact that they had this earthquake disaster, and it's is its own kind of and maybe I'm just digging, this might just be totally speculation, could just be place setting. I see you nodding, but I'm but it's kind of interesting that happened around the same time period. They had a massive disaster with this particular company that they have here.
They could have, listen, they could have just found the sign and said that's pretty and it works thematically in time period, or
got it at a discount.
They did. Man, that's a really nice snuff sign. I really like snuff signs, and I would hate to go to waste. If you're throwing it away. Classic.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I would say this. If that's the case, that is extremely detailed and meta, and props to the prop man.
It's probably not anything. It's just that I just thought it was an interesting coincidence if they didn't research that happened to be the case.
That's a pretty cool story though. That is an interesting shareable story that probably nobody knows.
No.
I guarantee nobody knows that.
Nobody knows that. True.
But that's such a cool one.
Yeah. I do see a barrel too, and I don't even know how to pronounce this in French. I didn't even look it up. So there's something that means foodstuffs in French.
That says barrel.
It's a barrel with the words foodstuffs, but in French. And then there's also some ore chutes on the right side if you want to continue to go there.
Shoot. Sorry. All right.
There's some ore chutes on the right side that you'll see, and it has a sign below it that says danger, stay clear of stamp mill. So they actually identify the stamp mill, which is like they did in Disneyland too. They didn't quite in Disney World, I don't think. We just know that it's a stamp mill.
Yeah, we know that. You don't need to tell us.
Normal people know that.
Yeah, Disney World, we know what a stamp mill is.
Okay, you gotta pause. Don't go any further.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Okay, I'm going back.
There was a hanging bucket with a ladle attached on the right side as well, which is again a water feature.
That was a little bit earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. Just so we talk about all the water things. Then we're going to head into the Big Thunder Mining Company main operations building. So this is what Pat Burke called it. And so there's the upper floor. We're going to go into the foreman's check-in office, which is actually really interesting because it doesn't look like a lot of the other offices that we've seen. There's not the places to put your tags and all the stuff that we've seen in other places. But they do have one of my favorite things, which would be a wood stove. And I looked at what kind this was.
These are a few of my favorite things. A wood stove in an assay office when I'm feeling sad.
The closest one I could come up with was maybe a Washington Stoveworks potbelly stove, but it didn't quite fit exactly. So it's really hard to say. It looks like another one that they might have bought fairly modern and then just antiqued it from what I can see.
That's where that sandwich place is from. That potbelly sandwiches. I don't know if they still exist, but they use one of those stoves as their logo. They're in an airport somewhere too. I remember seeing them.
Yeah, I had that in an airport once.
Did you freak out? Did you get its autograph for the sandwich?
No. I'm not into sandwiches. That's you.
Do you guys have a potbelly stove back there? What?
All right. Did you look up any of this equipment? Because I did. Did you?
What? Tell us. What is it?
So the thing that's on the far right, that thing is
this thing.
Yeah. So that it's like this. So this is a antique power hammer or a trip hammer that is called the Little Giant by Mayer Bros. From I think it's Mankato, Minnesota. Sorry, people from Minnesota, if that's not right. I did find an identification chart, but I couldn't quite get close enough to accurately identify it. But Louis Mayer invented the trip hammer, also known as the power hammer, in 1895. So this was a mechanical blacksmith tool used in machine shops and manufacturing operations that replaced the large and complicated steam hammer. But in a mining context, it was used for crushing metal ores into smaller pieces, like a smaller version of the stamp mill.
Man, when it's just like having a microwave versus an oven.
Exactly. See, you get it.
I get it. Listen, Burke loved to crush big rocks into tiny rocks and tiny rocks into small rocks and small rocks into even tinier pebbles and then tiny pebbles into dust. So
that's what he does for fun in his free time. Mankato. Thank you, everybody, for correcting my pronunciation. Mankato, Minnesota. There's one more piece of mining equipment that is in that spot that is a drill press, which is a camelback drill.
All right.
The name camelback refers to the peculiar peculiar humped cast iron center frame to which the main shaft and pulleys and gearing were built up. The camelback has the most distinctive appearance of any drill press ever manufactured. So, I looked at it, I was like, yeah, that's definitely a drill press, like, obviously. So, I did find one that was more hand-powered. I think that one was maybe not hand-powered, but this is a closer up of one. Other than that, there's also something to the right of that I couldn't identify that I thought was a stove, but it's not a stove because they already have a stove, and I couldn't figure that out. So I don't know.
It's got like a damper flap on the top, though, so it's like curious. Oh, yeah. Wait, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I saw this thing, too, and I was like, I don't know what that box is, but...
Yeah, I don't know. There's some shovels on the wall. There's also some wrenches. Do you remember when we talked about wrenches? Do you want to identify these ones, Kirk?
Yeah, let's look at some monkey wrenches because they look like little monkey mouths. Gotta love them.
So those are on the wall as well. And then this is what Pat Burke called the overhead powered tool bay is what we're headed in here. And it says they were all steam driven by an overhead lined shaft with belt pulleys. So that's what we're looking at here. Because I was like, oh, what is all this stuff? But he does say what they are.
Pipes.
So I don't know what all these things mean, but I'm going to tell you what they are because this is what he lists. So he says 3-domed steam-powered water pump station feeding overhead flumes to the water wheel. Then there's a head frame, and then a main shaft elevator cage, an operational steam winch, the stamp mill with feeder and crushing platform. And that's what's in that area. So it's all these various mining equipment that he put all in there to exactly as it would have been used. Other than that, I think that's all that's in that area. And then they do have this like posters area that I have kind of a picture of ish.
Oh, cool.
Rewards.
Are those all like bandits and things, people who steal gold and whatnot?
Yeah. So
I
it's
love
like
that.
wanted posters is basically what the entire thing is. And then like notices, but I don't have any good enough pictures to see exactly what they say. But it's like we saw in some of the other overseas parks where it's very, very straightforward short storytelling. Because you remember in Disneyland Paris, they wanted everybody knowing that people would come from many different cultures and many different languages. They wanted the storytelling to kind of speak for itself without using a lot of English or French language. So that is what you see in all of Disneyland Paris is like that. Things are very obvious from looking at them, what they are versus actually having to read to tell the story. So these, like most of the posters are just like reward $250. And like, it's just kind of like repeated to make it really simple for anybody who maybe is not very familiar with English language to get the storyline. So
Perfect for me. Very few words, lots of pictures. I'm into it.
right.
These things over here are like hand-powered little augers, which I think is pretty cool, as they would have timber that they would hewn into boards, and then they would use manual labor to still drill into these large structures. You also could probably use these to bore into rock if you really needed to, depending on what the grit was made out of, but more than likely just wood.
Yeah. So do you have anything else for upstairs before we go down the stairs?
I
There's some
got
stuff on
the
stairs.
ramp. I have some for the ramp.
Okay. Yeah, I have a couple things for the ramp too. Why don't you talk about what you got?
Well, first of all, we have antlers again, which I noticed, but I couldn't tell what was above this area. Like, is there something above the antlers?
Yeah.
Do you have a picture of that?
I have this is one I took again. Look, there's a clock.
Okay. Saturation. So
Edit it.
I'm just kidding. All right. Well, we kind of wish you did.
Tell me how you really
All right. Tell us
feel.
about what we're looking at here, because I see antlers. I see like almost a grandfather clock. And there's a map. There's a gold pan, and
The gold pen has the logo on it. Yeah.
yeah. So what are
Yeah.
we looking at?
That's pretty much it. Like I was trying to.
What's the territory
the map
on
is
the map?
The map is Nels, Colorado. So it looks like it's a Colorado map if
Huh.
you zoom in. So probably of the time period, and which would, of course, had a lot of mining in that area. So that makes sense. But that's all I have. Oh, and there's pickaxes too. If you saw below the gold pan, there's two pixes that are
Gold
crossed.
pan. Why are you saying it like that? The gold pan.
Say it.
They say it pan. You say wait. Say pan again.
Pan.
Pan.
This
It's a
is how I
pan.
talk.
If you wait, hang on. What if you had to spray a cooking spray onto a vessel that we just described? Would you be spraying what onto what?
Spraying on a pan.
But do you know what I'm talking about? Non-stick cooking spray?
Non-stick Pam.
Yeah.
Pam?
So you'd be using what on a what?
Pam on a pan.
Pam on a pan. All right.
I'm
Anyway,
not saying it
that's
weird.
very funny.
It's from the guy
I never
who
knew
says
you said that.
Mario. Right.
Yeah. Oh,
Mario.
dude, my Mario is so bad. All your kids
Wonder.
make fun of me. Every single one of your kids was like,
they've been
"Yo,
waiting.
say Super Mario." I'm like, Mario? They're like,
They've been waiting to say that to you. They've been
they were
telling
so
me how they
happy
were going
to
say
make
that.
fun of me.
Yeah. Let's move on. Let's go
That's the
downstairs.
pan.
Downstairs to the lower floor. There's actually something really. What?
Okay, the lower floor. Yep.
The lower floor has something that's really unique to this version, which is these mechanical ore chutes in the train load area. And I have a quote from Pat Burke that says, "This was a great scene to develop with the real mechanical mine chute doors. What a job finding and hauling those all the way to Thunder Mesa." So this is actually what they would use to close the doors to the chute and prevent any ore from falling out of it, I think, supposedly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So there's a whole line of them, but they're all antique mining doors, which is pretty neat.
They're pretty creepy, to be honest.
They're creepy.
Yeah.
You close somebody in there.
Yeah, it's
Get
very
out.
creepy.
Yeah. The other things that they have down here. Oh, Kirk, you're gonna be happy. There's something for everybody in this particular one. And for you,
Cowboy coffee. Come on.
cowboy
Come on.
coffee. It's in there. It's there.
I see him right here. I see him right
It's a
back
little
there.
Stove. There it is.
cowboy coffee.
There's a couple different ones too. There's a whole bunch of them. Do you see?
Yeah, well, you need a lot of coffee out there.
Like percolators. They also have some stove and shovels, like a whole bunch of shovels in the corner. They have this sign that says, hang up your tools and empty your pockets on the way out, which is similar to some of the other Big Thunders that we talked about. They also have these tin lunch pails that you can see in the corner.
Oh,
for
that's
miners.
fun.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think a traditional miner's meal would be in a lunch tin?
We should look that up for next week because I haven't looked it up.
That's homework.
Yeah.
I'm going to write that down.
Yeah. Well, get ready for miners' lunches next week. We can come back for Distory.
Oh man, we like to leave them wanting here. You know, we like to
played it
tease.
fast and loose with the word wanting.
All right, okay. We got some lunch pails. I'm into it. I'll be back next week.
But I mean, honestly, though, I feel like I've learned so much information about mining, about antique mining equipment, about mining practices.
And again, it's like as we go through our last queue of this, don't you feel that more than half, probably 80% of this, you don't have to look up because you can identify the equipment. It's so sick that we're taking pictures in other locations and going, is that a donkey engine, portable engine? Is that a tractor? Like
a steam compressor.
Right.
Yeah.
That's weird. But hey, the more you know.
But now everybody else can be weird with us, so we're not alone.
God, Kate. Is this how we get friends?
This is it.
This is it. It's our time to shine.
Anyway, well, do you have anything else this evening?
No.
Okay. Shall we wrap it up?
Let's pull this train into the station.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us for this episode of Distory. We hope you enjoyed some of these funny, quirky little stories of the queue for Disneyland Paris's Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. Kirk, do you have any final thoughts here as we wrap up?
I feel like this episode was a real slow burn.
I'm going to text you later about what that actually means.
It's probably something gross, dude. I don't know what you're talking about, but...
No. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for being with us for this amazing journey that we're now 105 episodes into Distory, which is just crazy. And we really appreciate you guys so much hanging out with us all this time. And we hope that you enjoy. We're getting close to the end of this series, but we're not quite there yet because we got to hop on this ride for Disneyland Paris. So that's what we're going to be doing next week. But until then, we hope you have a wonderful week and we'll see you next time on Distory.